Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Legendary Aspects. Yes, not unique items. Today we're going to be going over an aspect that is actually really strong. It is known as the Unyielding Hits. First thing we're going to do is talk about Unyielding Hits and how broken it is, and how you can take advantage of it to the best of your ability. Apparently, I'm unable to unequip my ring. Like, what the hell's going on right now? Oh, okay. Apparently, I'm just not allowed to be online right now. No big deal. No big deal. So, unyielding hits is an interesting aspect that allows you to basically amplify the base of your damage by a rather large portion. And I'm not really sure how I can explain this in the way that it is required, other than just to simply say that a massive amount of damage to your base is a lot more than you think it is. So, if you run like on a calculator and you say, I don't know, let's pretend you had a 400% damage bonus, which is pretty good, right? So let's say you do like 10,000 damage and you get a 400% damage bonus, which is a lot of additional bonus, which is going to bring you up to 50,000. That's a lot of damage, right? Now, let's say I were to offer you an additional 100% bonus. So now you're going to go up another 100%, right? So you're going to go 10,000 plus 500%, and that's going to bring you up 50,000 to 60,000 total. However, if I were to offer you an increase in your base damage instead, like say for instance I offered you an additional 1,500 base damage. Well, if your 10,000 damage is increased by 1,500, and then increased by 400%, you're going to end up with 57,500, which is a pretty high amount of damage. And you can see how this amount of damage is just simply higher than the original number of 400%. Now, increasing your multiplier, of course, is going to always make this even stronger, and increasing the base is essentially like increasing the base of your weapon. So when you look at your weapon and you see your weapon is an 800 item power item, it has a damage per hit of 477 to 715, and it does a very specific amount of damage, right? And attacks per second and all that jazz. When you look at your abilities, like if you hold your mouse over your ability, the ability is actually scaling its damage based off of your weapon. So it says 52,373 damage over 7 seconds and 229,000 poisoning damage over that same duration, right? Over 11 seconds. If I take off my weapon and I look at the ability, you'll notice that all of a sudden it says 0. 0, 0, but it's still showing you the percentage of your weapon damage that it's going to be applying. So in this particular case, you can see it's 704% toxic skin active poisoning, or 161% for the passive effect, and so forth and so on. Unyielding Hits works by using your armor value to enhance the base damage of the weapon, which is then multiplied by everything else in the row. So the more multipliers and the more damage bonuses that you have, the more this base damage becomes effective, because it's going to keep multiplying this base by a rather large degree. As an example, let's take off Unyielding Hits first, and I'm going to work out like my damage chain. We're just going to build up all of our bonuses here real quick. And then we're going to take a look at the tooltip. So I'm going to make sure I attack multiple times. Let's get our supremacy stacks up. Let's really stack up as much damage as we can. And we're looking at a maximum of 788,000 on the poisoning there. A little over, like, maybe 200k. We'll be generous. About 200k on the poisoning damage for the passive effect. Not exactly, like, super crazy in terms of, like, the damage numbers that are actually written on the tooltip. However, if we utilize the unyielding aspect, which says casting a gorilla skill increases your weapon damage by 10 to 30% of your armor for 3 seconds with a maximum bonus of 1,500 points of weapon damage, Spiritborn only. So what this is doing is if we have the appropriate amount of armor, you can achieve this 1,500 weapon damage bonus, which is going to apply directly to the base, and then everything is going to start multiplying off of this base. So it's going to be as if we have a higher item power weapon. Think about it this way. If I had like a 900 item power weapon instead of an 800, of course my damage is going to be way higher than everybody else's, because I have a higher base damage than everybody else. And that's essentially what the unyielding aspect does, is it's increasing the base, which everything is then being multiplied by. Now, the key here is that you do have to use a gorilla skill once every 3 seconds. There's a lot of ways that you could potentially achieve this. If you mark your skills as gorilla skills, that works. You can also potentially utilize the rune that automatically casts Concussive Stomp. That is the Tizzik rune. The Tizzik rune has a invoke the Spiritborn's Concussive Stomp, dealing damage and knocking down enemies, and that's once every second. You can manage to maintain that easily once every 3 seconds, and that maintains the effect. If you put on the ring and you don't have a gorilla skill, like if something is not marked as a gorilla skill, it doesn't work. You also need a specific amount of armor to take advantage of this. So Khan was kind enough to share with me the formula for finding out your percentage. So this is what you do. You want to take your 1500 damage number, and you want to divide that by the percentage on your aspect. So in this particular case, I'm at 29. If you were to put it on an amulet, that would of course go up. But I'm at 29%, and so I'm going to divide that by 29%. So we're going to take this and we go divide 29%, which is going to give me the amount of armor that I need to hit the 1500 damage bonus. This includes the penalty, which is invisible at the current moment because I'm in Torment 4. So to get the full number for this, you need a total of 6,172 armor to reach the 1,500 cap with 29%, which is what I'm currently at. Now, of course, when you're in Torment 4, what's on here is already subtracting this number. So it doesn't matter so much. You don't have to worry about that extra 1,000 because what's written here is the correct value. So you can just go ahead and subtract that number, but you are still going to need to get that 1,000 bonus. And this needs to read 5,172 to obtain that number. Right now, I'm utilizing Disobedience to hit that number, and I'm going to show you like after I attack a couple times, you'll see that my armor value goes up to at least enough that I need. So you see I'm past 5,172. In fact, I actually go much higher than that at the moment. And that's because of the way that this works. So 5,749 bonus. Now, if I put on the Unyielding Ring with this bonus armor, what you're going to notice is that now my toxic skin, as an example, is now multiplying off of that base number. And I'm going to go ahead and get the same supremacy stacks so that we have an equivalent example. And then we're going to take a look at this once we get everything nice and built. And as you can see here, I'm at 4 million poisoning damage, up to 1 million damage on the passive, and as I lose my armor stacks and my bonuses, it's quickly going down. This isn't even like the limit of how high you can potentially get toxic skin. In fact, a lot of abilities scale this way in very crazy ways. This is one in particular from Leon, who is scaling his to the absolute moon and back, and as you can see, he's currently got his tooltip to read 25,896,494. And of course, this is actually before some of the multipliers come into play, because not all the multipliers are going to show on the tooltip. And a little bit of a warning, this tooltip isn't exactly accurate, 100% accurate, but it does at least show you how this Unyielding Hits can balloon out the multiplier in pretty insane ways.
Mr. Goody Two Shoes, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Ginger Evil Mentor here. Why bother farming when you can go to MMOEXP.com and simply purchase your items in gold? GGM would have you farm the items. What a pathetic being. Use code GEM Ginger Evil Mentor for 6% off your entire purchase. And don't tell Ginger Gaming Mentor that I was here.
And this can be utilized across the board on a large variety of skills. And what you actually want to do to test to make sure that it's actually working is you're going to want to like test it without Unyielding Hits first. So let's take, for instance, Scourge. So Scourge is a good example. Scourge is currently doing 62,000, varying, like 62,000 damage. So we're going to go ahead and hit the target. And you can see it's got 6.8k bonus there. Right? So like 6.8k to 4.2k dot. So let's put this on. We're just going to use one gorilla skill, and then we're going to use Scourge. And as you can see, we have 17k. So we know for a fact that Unyielding Hits is working with this particular ability. Unyielding Hits does require a bit of workup to get access to that obviously massive amount of armor that you need to make this work. I would highly recommend that you get an amulet that has a greater affix armor aspect on it. That is a very easy way to get a large amount of this armor. Armor on your pants as a greater affix, or armor on your armor as a greater affix, or even armor on your boots as a greater affix can come in handy here tremendously. Obviously, utilizing Grand Skulls for the 240 armor here is definitely going to help you out tremendously. And if you have to, there are quite a few aspects in the game that can give you armor bonus. Let's go take a look at some of those. Obviously, I'm wearing one of them, which is Disobedience, but there's more armor aspects than just that one. So depending on how you're building your character, what you're setting up, you could potentially use any of the various armor aspects to get an additional bump in your armor. So let's go ahead and utilize the panel here. And you're going to see that number one, we have access to Disobedience, which is going to give you a scaling increase of up to 46%, which is not bad. It is a little bit wonky in the way that it generates and the way that it falls off, so it sometimes can be not as amazing. The aspect of Forest Power says that it only gives you 25%, but I know for a fact that this is a lie, because if you utilize Mystic Circle Potency, you can get this way higher. And the amount of armor that it gives you actually stacks up very nicely. So if you are benefiting from Mystic Circle Potency bonuses, like for instance, you're utilizing the Jaguar Mystic Circle, perhaps you have Mystic Circle Potency on your, your weapon, your amulet, your rings, your gloves. This can be a very interesting one, not only to give you a huge armor bump, but also a free barrier too, which is not bad. And because you need to use a gorilla skill to activate the Unyielding Hits in the first place, you're also going to use a gorilla skill when inside the Mystic Circle to gain access to the armor and the barrier. And on top of this, it actually does persist for a couple seconds outside of the barrier, so outside of the circle. So it's not like you have to be standing inside the Mystic Circle to get access to this. You just have to be inside the Mystic Circle at least once and use an ability. So that's another way that you could potentially grab armor. This one, I'm not really sure about that one. That one has gained 1% increased armor and thorns per 1% of your missing maximum life. I don't think that one's amazing. Juggernaut got kind of like nerfed into the dirt. It's now only 601 armor flat, which is pretty pathetic, especially considering it gives you the evade cooldown reduction increase. But it is a flat value, so it could potentially be better than Disobedience if that flat value pushes you over the edge. But I'm not entirely sure it's better than Forest Power or Disobedience, especially since Forest Power and Disobedience are both stronger in the terms of like how much they give you, and Forest Power also gives you obviously barrier as well. So there's also that. Then on top of that, you can also greater masterwork. You can get other things to give you armor. Like for instance, like if you get some good masterworks on, say, the armor on your amulet, or even just honestly just hitting 12 masterworks and not even getting the greater masterworks on there is going to give you a pretty good bonus in your armor value, which is going to help you tremendously to work toward that massive armor that you need to make this item work. I would highly recommend that everybody check out at least Unyielding Hits, because I do think Unyielding Hits is a very, very strong aspect. I actually had planned on making an entire character around this to begin with. I wanted to do like Disobedience, Juggernaut, the Forest Power, like full armor bonuses, like all skulls. And then when I got into the game, I found out that there was a cap on it of 1,500. So I wasn't as interested in doing like an entire build around it, but it is definitely something that you can incorporate into just about any build. It does take a little bit of work. You need the equipment to hit the right number, and it doesn't really do anything unless you are, number one, hitting the cap. So you want to make sure you've got the armor value that you need to take advantage of it. And number two, you also have to use a gorilla skill on a constant basis. So you either are going to need a gorilla skill going off all the time, like Concussive Stomp perhaps, which you can use from the rune, or you're going to have the gorilla tag, which is going to make that possible. Now, Wuxie Nakpa is an interesting way that you can potentially do this, because Wuxie Nakpa grants you the gorilla tag and the Gorilla Spirit Hole bonus if you use the Gorilla Ultimate, and allows you to choose a different ultimate as well. So, as an example, like say I wanted to use the Jaguar or the Eagle primary Spirit Hole, but I also wanted to get access to the Gorilla as well. Then what I could do is I could just simply use the Gorilla Ultimate with the Wuxie Nakpa, and I could get access to that. So in this particular case, and I'm going to show you how this functions. As you use the Wuxie Nakpa, you get access to the Gorilla Spirit Hall, even though I do not have the Gorilla Spirit Hall on my character. So I just use the Gorilla, and you'll see this little thing right here that says Temporary Gorilla Spirit Hall, and you'll notice that my ability is now a Gorilla ability, so when I use it, I'm going to get access to the Unyielding Hits as long as I have the temporary access to the Spirit Hall. And you can keep that up pretty much primarily, like, easily, with the Wuxie Nakpa. It's such a easy thing to do with that particular bonus. All in all, though, probably one of the most amazing aspects in the game. I don't think it's bugged, so let's talk about that for a second too, because I know a lot of people might say that like this is a bugged aspect. There are a lot of bugs on the Spiritborn, but this is one that I feel like does not need to be nerfed. It is powerful, yes. It is something that you have to work towards, though. You do need a rather large amount of armor bonuses. You need armor on your equipment. You need skulls in your jewelry. You need all sorts of various things to reach the amount of armor that you need to take advantage of this. And I don't see any problem with it. In its current state, it is not broken. But it is one of the ways that people are taking advantage of some of the more broken things. Because this allows you to scale the damage of your ability, and then the other things are multiplying the ability. Which, of course, if you can scale the damage of your ability to a really high extent, and then multiply it even further, then of course that's going to lead into the trillions and the quadrillions and things like that. But it's my hope that this aspect is not going to get nerfed. I do not want to see it nerfed. Not because I think it's like overpowered and I really want to utilize it, but because I think it's appropriately powered. It does what it's supposed to do at a heavy cost of forcing you to build armor on essentially all of your equipment, which does take away from a large amount of your damage that you would otherwise get through, normal aspects and things like that. Like, for instance, I'm right now being forced to use Disobedience to reach that number. I also have armor on my pants. I've got armor on my amulet. I've got a skull in my, my necklace to try and reach that number. I've got tons of different things going on to try and hit those values. I even have Shaco one because Shaco, of course, also has armor value, which is very helpful to reach that number. Where do you get this particular aspect? So the aspect of Unyielding Hits. Let's go to here real quick, and we're gonna go to aspects. Unyielding Hits. The aspect of Unyielding Hits is what is that? Offensive? Yes, it's an offensive aspect, which means that you can potentially get this on rings. You can potentially get it on an amulet. You can get it on weapons, as well as gloves. And if you're trying to gamble this particular aspect, you can get it from the gamble window. Let's go ahead and put in Unyielding Hits here. So in this particular case, gloves is the cheapest on the gamble window to try and get this. And obviously, you're also going to want Ancestral, which is a whole other thing as well. And let me give you a little tip if you're trying to find aspects. If you're trying to find aspects, one of the best places to go is actually the Den. So go ahead and travel over to the Mercenary Den. And in the Mercenary Den, you're going to find the Barter Shop. Well, if you're going through the barter shop, you're going to find some pretty good aspects in here. And you get a free resupply every single day on every single character, by the way. So log into all your characters and check on all your characters. And you're going to look for either the offensive aspect caches or you're going to look for the aspect on the actual weapons. And then you can just simply purchase them here. This is actually a really good spot. I've gotten several perfect aspects this season from the barter shop, so definitely 100% check out the barter shop. And also maybe try and gamble yourself one as well. Gambling gloves is probably a really good way to get your hands on these. So far this season, getting access to perfect aspects has definitely been very tough. I have a 29%er right now, and I really wish I had a 30 because it would lower the overall armor value that I needed to reach that 1500 magic number and free up some more spots on my gear for other bonuses, which would be really nice. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these videos. If you have any questions on the way that Unyielding Hits works, be sure to ask them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this aspect too. Do you think it needs to be nerfed, or do you think it is fine as it is? And as always, keep watching.